Hello guys, back at it. I want to introduce your next assignment, which is called the cut line design. In this particular assignment, you are going to be focusing on line and shape, and you are going to make a eye-appealing design with a good composition using line and shape. As you can see on the screen, they've used lines several different directions. They've used thick line, they've used thin line, they've created shape with line. So there's all kinds of ways to do this, and we'll get to that as soon as we talk about this. The things you're going to need. You are going to need that 6x8 small sheet of white paper that was sent home with you. That's what you're going to glue things on. You're also going to use the black construction paper, and we're going to cut shapes and lines out of the black construction paper. You also are going to use scissors and glue. I sent home a glue stick with you. If you have rubber cement, that works wonderful also. Another option is an X-Acto knife. I purchased one from Walmart. Okay. Also, if you're using an X-Acto knife, you're going to want to make sure that you have some kind of cutting board. This one came with my X-Acto knife. However, you can use the back of a folder, you can use a piece of scrap cardboard, whatever. Just please make sure that you use something underneath that, because if you do not, you're going to ruin your tabletop or whatever it is that you're working on. Next thing is, well, you're going to watch the video, what you're doing right now. You're going to create 4 thumbnail sketches in your sketchbook, and I'm going to do one of those with you. Okay, so first of all, let's move over to the screen here. I hope everybody can see this. First thing, what I like to do is just split it up. I like to work small. You can use each piece of sketchbook paper as you're playing around with your design. I like to cut mine. I just take a ruler. I'm just going to break it up into 4 sections. And I'm going to give you an example of what I would do for mine. Okay. So let's just talk about this one section being your piece of paper that you're going to use. You can use angular designs, you could use curvy shapes, whatever it is that you like. I'm going to start off here. I'm going to draw a shape. Okay, and I'm going to I want to act like this is a puzzle piece, and I want it to look like it all goes together. I have this line coming off here, and it runs off the side of the paper. Another teardrop. Change my shape up a little bit. I have one running off the side. I'm just creating a nice repeating patterns, repeating shapes. Maybe I'll put a circle in there. And then have another circle that runs off the side of the paper. And I'm just creating a nice eye-appealing design. It's kind of like a Zentangle, if you've ever done a Zentangle. And I'm trying to alternate my shapes and you kind of see how they all fit together there. Here is one. This was one that I had done. It's completely finished here. Okay. This was an example that I did, and you can see how I've like overlapped my shapes. I've overlapped the triangle shapes with the circles. These are overlapped here. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I'd like for you to practice at least 4 of these. Okay, please do that. Let's move back. Let's look at these. These are some examples that were finished. Okay, and you can see they all go together. They all look like they're a puzzle piece. They flow. They also have a focal point. So if I am looking at the first one, you can see that where does your eye go to? Okay. Well, my eye goes to the circle and the triangle at the bottom of that cut line design. I'll get one out here to show you. So, looking here. This one here, look how well this all goes together. If you're looking at this, where do you think the focal point is in this? My eye goes right here because it's kind of light. Okay. So there's a focal point there. So we'll come back to the focal point. Next thing you're going to do, you can, if you want to, you can just draw on this black sheet of paper that you have, and we can just do that. If you decide that you want to draw out on this black sheet of paper, what you're going to want to do is after you cut it all out, you're going to want to flip it so the pencil lines don't show. I like just to go ahead and start. Okay, so I'm going to get my white sheet of paper out here and my black. And I'm going to start with cutting. Okay, now when you're cutting, notice I'm moving the paper and not just using the scissors to cut. This is going to make it a lot easier. So I'm just going to cut like a simple shape here. Stick that right on there. Now what I'm going to do with what I have, I'm going to use that as a guideline to cut my next shapes. Okay, because let me show you. Once you do that, they go really well together. Okay. And you can see how that just follows that line right there. And it acts like a puzzle piece. And we cut a few more here. Another one there. Just going to keep cutting shapes and cutting shapes. Anything that you are cutting around, don't discard. You can always come back and use that. Like this was one I thought I wouldn't use, but look, it fits right in there perfectly like that. Okay, cut some different shapes. And if you have some of the same shapes, let's just say that you have a lot of circles in yours. And put a circle here. If you have a lot of circles, you are going to want to make sure that you have different sizes. You don't want to keep everything the same size. Just going to cut another one here. And maybe you want one of those to run off the page because you're going to have extension. So you're just going to play around with those, and you're just going to create whatever that you can create there. So let's talk about what you're going to do, the do's and don'ts. Come down here. We want to use non-objective shapes. What's a non-objective shape? Well, a non-objective shape is exactly what I cut out on my screen. I do not want to have hearts or flowers or letters. Okay, I don't want to cut out pictures. However, if your non-objective shapes form into what might be a picture, like let's say maybe they look like a tree accidentally, that's fine. You want to make sure that you vary the sizes and shapes in your design. You do not want all the same. We don't want everything being circles. Okay, we don't want everything being triangles. If you have more than one circle or more than one triangle, make sure that they're different sizes. That will help. You want to create a path for your eye to flow. And you're going to do that by making repeating shapes and overlapping them. And I'll get to that in a little bit. You're going to create at least one focal point. Your focal point is what your eye goes to, what stands out in the picture. We're going to use asymmetrical balance. We don't want it to be the same on both sides. We'll get to that in a little bit. Some don'ts. We don't want to dissect the page. We don't want to put the focal point in the middle. That is a no-no. Then your eye doesn't know where to go. Okay? And I'll show you what a good place to put the focal point is in a minute. Don't decorate all four corners with shapes. And again, don't use recognizable shapes like hearts and flowers, etc. They're boring. They're overused. Let's stay creative. Okay? So back here, if you are, let's just do this. Let's say that this is my paper. Okay? A good place for a focal point would be if I flip this up into sections like this. This is a good place for a focal point. This is a good place for a focal point. Here and here. Do not put it in the middle. That's a no. No, you don't want it in the middle. So these are good places where my circles are. Okay. Another thing, we want to use extension. We had all those shapes. Let's see that I had a circle here. I had a circle here. Notice I'm using different sizes. Notice I put this circle and it's running off of the page. You can also overlap. Let's say that I have a line there. Oh, look, it's running off the page and it's going to go behind my circle. I can do this too. I can do that all the way, all right? So you can see what I'm doing there. Another thing I want to talk to you about, if you're using an X-Acto knife, this is kind of cool. So let's say that you have this big circle right here, and it's too big, it's kind of bulky, and I'm not liking it. If you have an X-Acto knife, this is kind of hard to do with scissors. What you can do is you can take and you can cut out negative space inside a big blocky shape. Big blocky shapes are boring. Just kind of move around here like that. And as you can see, I've changed it into just a negative space. And I still have this smaller circle that I can use. Okay? Now, let's say that, oh my gosh, I don't have an X-Acto knife. No biggie. That's not a problem. What we can do is you can take and use your scissors, and maybe you want to cut into that big blocky shape. And then I'm going to save those little pieces that I cut, because I might be using them later. So I have something like this. Okay, that I got rid of that big blocky shape, and I can use these. Look at that, I can just stick those in there, and that fills up some space. Okay, so you're just kind of creating whatever you want to do. Now, we don't want a lot of white space. We want everything to fit together. Now, another thing, we talked about overlapping. Let's say that I want the circle to overlap that shape right there. That's kind of cool. Totally changes it. If I put it here, or let's overlap it and put it there. It works either way. Okay? So this is how you're going to create it. What I'd like for you to do is cut out all your shapes. Move them around, because you can come up with a different design every time. Don't glue as soon as you get done, because you're going to be like, oh, I don't like that. I don't have another piece of paper. So play around with it and make sure that you like it before you glue. Now let's talk about glue. You have that wonderful glue stick that I gave you, okay? And when you're gluing, I like to use a piece of scrap paper. So get yourself a piece of scrap paper, because you don't want to have glue all over your table. All right? So I'm going to start with my focal point. This is what I wanted as my focal point. Okay? And it might move to this, maybe these two shapes here. So I'm going to glue the back on my scrap sheet. And then I'm going to put this down. I know I don't want it in the middle, so I'm going to set it over to where I showed you those good points are for a focal point. And then I got to start. I still think this is kind of blocky, so I'm going to come in here, because I don't, like I said, it's not always your first idea is not always your best idea. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to cut that out, and I'm just going to lay everything out before I continue to glue, to make sure that, hey, I like this design, it's a good design. What you want to do is you want to go back, you're going to want to go back to these do's and don'ts, okay? Do you have all this? Do you have non-objective shapes? Did you create a path for your eye? When you're creating a path for your eye, you're going to want to repeat. So if I'm repeating these shapes, repeating these lines, repeat, going over there, do you see how my eye starts here and kind of goes around with the flow? That's what you want to create. Remember another thing, you want to extend. Go ahead and extend some of those shapes off the page. Okay, we can always cut more. You don't want too much white. Okay, here we go. You see I can change that just by moving things around and putting those little scraps in there. I can change this repeatedly and making sure it's a good design before I start gluing. That is the one thing that you want to do. Okay? Go back here and just see what we have. So, you've watched the video. You've created 4 thumbnail sketches in your sketchbook of how you think you want this to look. All right. Next thing, some questions before you start gluing. Do you have a focal point? Is it in the middle? If it is, move it. Do your eyes go through the design? Do you have repeating shapes? Does your shapes overlap? Um, do you have the edges? Do the edges look like they run off the paper? That's called extension. Does your design look complete? Now, you're going to have 5 days before this is going to be posted in the media outlet on Friday. Take a look here. You have this PowerPoint. You can go over and go through this PowerPoint and look at the examples. But I do want to come down here and show you at the very bottom. Take a look at this one here. Do you think that this one meets the objectives? It's only one shape. Sure, they're different sizes, but do you see that there's so much white in them? It's a boring design. There's no focal point. There's too much white. There's not enough different shapes. So that's kind of a no-no. Another thing, you can start off, this bottom slide here, this person started off and he had way too much. There wasn't a lot of movement, a lot of black, a lot of almost like work backwards. So they went and they cut more shapes out, okay? And much more successful is the one to the right. So keep that in mind, okay? So what I want you to do, go over this PowerPoint, review, look at those questions that I posted underneath the instructions, and when you feel comfortable, lay it out, take a look at it, move it around, and when you think, hey, this is what I want, you can go ahead and glue. If you have any questions, you can take a picture of it and shoot me an email and ask, hey, what do you think, Misty? I would love to help you. I hope this helps. I will be talking with you more about this when you come to class. So you don't have to glue. If you just want to get started and cut your shapes out so you have something to go with when you come to school on your day, I can help you get started. Hope you guys had a great weekend, and I will talk to you at school. Bye-bye.